Hello, everyone. This is Amma coming to you with another episode of my home birth series where I bring on home birth mamas to share their light, their love, and their experiences to inspire other mothers who may be considering home birth. Today, I have Melanie, and Melanie is a two times home birth mama. And I'm going to pass the mic to her so that she can tell you a little bit about herself.
Hi, yes, I am a mom of three girls, one birth and two at home. I'm also a second generation childbirth educator and doula over at returningtobirth.com. So I share birth stories that answer the question, what did your birth experience teach you about yourself? Which I find to be the craziest question and the most amazing answers from all types of birth. So total birth geek, love home birth. So happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And as you all know, I am a holistic doula. I am an aspiring midwife and a Kundalini Reiki practitioner. So let's get into the interview so we can learn a little bit more about Melanie and her experiences. So, my first question is, what led you to have a home birth over a hospital birth?
Uh, that wasn't the question I was looking at first when I was figuring out what I wanted to do. Home birth was not on my radar at all. I knew I wanted an unmedicated birth. As I grew up with a mom as a doula, natural birth was something I was very just accustomed to. That was my normal. So I assumed that's what I was going to do. My mom had most of us at a hospital. I think one of us was a birth center, but it was my first baby. I wasn't sure about a birth center. So I was looking at, it was for sure going to be midwives. I knew that much going in, but it was either going to be the midwife group at a hospital or I had heard of a birth center. So I started out with the midwives at a hospital and was like talking to the birth center as well, and kind of just made that decision to do a birth center. So home birth was never on the radar, but I think choosing birth center for my first is what allowed me to be able to choose home birth by the time I was having my
Wow.
second birth. So I'm really glad that I had such a great experience at first. And really, it became when I looked at my first experience, was there anything I would change? And I had a great birth experience at the birth center. I loved it. The only thing I would change was the car ride to get there. It was pretty miserable. I was in transition in a car for 20 minutes over cobblestone roads. So if I could eliminate that, it would have been picture perfect. Then it was, you can't eliminate that. It's called home birth. So that's kind of what we did for the second. And it was great.
Right.
So that's how I found my way.
Wow. Now, do you think that having a birth center birth, and you know how birth centers are the home you feel, you kind of feel like you're at home even though you're really not. Do you think that made you feel more comfortable to say, I can do, I think I can do this at home?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I love that. Birth centers to me are kind of like, yeah, it's like home, but you're not home. And I love that birth centers don't keep you a long time. So I really love that answer.
I'm going to say that I had, we got to the birth center around like 12. I had her at 1:30, so like an hour later. And then we were home that night by 8 p.m. And that was me staying longer than most. So
Wow.
going into town for lunch and coming home with a baby. Like we were there not even a full day. So that was really nice to recover in my own home. Another thing that helped me be like, that's great. I want that again. I don't want to be in a hospital for a couple of days with a toddler at home. Like I want to be at home. So that helped me choose home birth. But for your next question about how to prepare,
Yes, I love that.
did um, childbirth education class through the birth center for my first, which was hypnobirthing, the Mongan method. It was a 5-person course with my husband involved, which was a fantastic class. And that was something that I used. I did another like 1-day hypnobirthing refresher class when I was pregnant with my second to prepare for home birth to just make sure I didn't forget everything. And that was really cool. to prepare. Because for me, I find that book knowledge doesn't help with home birth. You can learn a lot about birth, but to prepare for home birth, it's really more embodiment practice, getting it physically, how do I feel, emotionally, how do I feel. Nervous system is the giant thing, you know, and learning how to tap into a relaxation in my own body. Hypnobirthing was a really great introduction to that for me, and something I could delve into deeper. And that has been the biggest thing that helped me prepare for home birth. Nervous system regulation techniques.
Yes. That's a big one. That's a big one. I think a lot of times we hyper focus on the mental preparation, even though the nervous system is mental. But I mean, as far as like book, like what books do I read, or what podcast should I listen to? When really, when you're in birth, it's not a situation where you're going to be thinking about the 100 million things that you just learned. I mean, some things might come to you, but you'll have to learn to lean into yourself, right? So I really love that you spoke mostly about the nervous system, because it is really important.
Definitely agree.
So, what factors did you consider when selecting a midwife, which is a big thing, right? Birth is the most intimate time in your life. And I feel some mamas, they don't know how to look for a good midwife that connects with them, or a provider. And either they settle, or, they choose the first thing that comes, because they don't really know how to interview or how to choose someone that truly connects with their spirit.
Yeah, I mean, provider is huge. I mean, unfortunately, one of the biggest indicators of what your birth experience is going to be like. Where are you giving birth? And I really wish that was different, but choosing who is your support team is really impactful for what birth is going to be like. So for my second, I was exploring the concept of home, but I did have some concerns about safety aspects at the time. I hadn't done a whole lot of research yet, but like I knew I had a great experience with midwife. The birth center felt safer because it was a facility, and I think a lot of us have the I guess you could call it indoctrination of hospitals are the safest facilities to be at. So the farther you get away, the more unsafe you get, which is not necessarily true. But being at a birth center with my first, that felt safe because it was a facility, home-like facility, but it was a facility. But when I actually looked at, what equipment do they have there? What are the training of the midwives out there? Those things were all available to me at home. So for me, I felt safest with choosing a team that was as similar to the qualifications as my birth school. So I'm a certified nurse at my home birth over licensed midwives at the time. And I'm in San Diego. And at that time, I think there was only 2 options, and one was not taking new clients. So it really was like, here's your option if that's what you want. And so that's what I felt safest with at the time. And I did a meet the midwife meeting with them, where they were a staff of 4 different midwives that would be on call. One was a midwife trained in the UK, so similar to the CNM. The other 2 were licensed professional midwives in California, and then the other was a certified nurse midwife. So I got to meet with all of them. And at first, the certified nurse midwife was the only one I felt safe with, just with what I was coming in with as far as my knowledge of birth. Over I got more but that was birth. What I felt safe by having a certified nurse midwife, and thankfully I had the option to have that. One of the other midwives ended up being to my birth, but she was wonderful as well. And then with my third, I used the same midwife group again, and was just very happy with all of them. But it was something where I got an appointment, see all of the different midwives, and build a relationship with all 4 of them, and then 2 of them would be my birth, whoever was on call when I went into labor. And so that was nice for me to have a little bit of a variety because they all have different, specialties and strengths. So, and they can, each other if questions come up. And that was really have a variety instead of one person. And that worked well for me.
I love that. I love that. So, what did you do to create the environment? Like, what environment did you create? I know you said you had the birth center birth at first, so they kind of already have their environment set up. But did you do anything special to stimulate your five senses, or to create a Zen environment where you felt comfortable, that you felt like it would be easier for you to go within yourself during birth and feel most comfortable?
Yes and no. So, yes, I did do things that were really helpful for the birth, but they weren't really planned out ahead. It was just like these were the things that became available to me in the moment because I needed them. Um, if I could have planned ahead, going back, I would have done that a little bit more. But like, I was not somebody to like hang up decoration or affirmations or do twinkle lights or any of these beautiful birth spaces you see on Instagram. I didn't do any of that. I just wore whatever clothes I happened to be in when labor started. The one thing I did plan to have a birth. Um, that was something I did not have with my first, and was very torn about it. But it's like, well, I might as well have it just in case I want to use it. But that was for my second. That was the only thing that really helped me pain relief wise. My second was very painful. My first and third were not. So the hot water was a lifesaver, and I don't think I would have been able to stay at home all the way through if I didn't have that for pain relief for that particular birth. So having the tub was essential.
Yes.
And very fast labor, so it wasn't filled up in time for me to spend as much time in the tub as I wanted to. So I was in my regular, tiny, hard, uncomfortable bathtub waiting for the birth tub to get filled. And that was very uncomfortable because my belly didn't exactly fit under the water and trying to squeeze in there. But the other thing that I had was we did a crock pot, and being at home, that was pretty easy to just crock pot with washcloths rolled up and put in, I think it did like the water in the crock pot with these rolled up washcloths in there and a couple drops of lavender essential oil. And so when I'd have a contraction in the bathtub with my belly hanging out, not in the water, we'd put these hot washcloths on my belly with the lavender oil and smell it. And that would really help me relax with the heat, moisture, the smell. And that really brought me back down into my body and present in the moment while I was waiting for the tub to be ready. That was really helpful. But other than that, and acupuncture. My brother is an acupuncturist and was very uncomfortable. Labor hadn't really started. I was just so uncomfortable. And so he came to my house with an acupuncture treatment at the house. And that instantly put me into active labor. And baby came very quickly after that, an hour and 45 minutes after first. So very fast. But yeah, acupuncture, birth tub, and the washcloths were my environment that made it happen.
I love that you said it. Your birth environment didn't look anything like what you see on Instagram, because I feel most times we have this vision of what we want our home birth to look like, but when it comes down to the day, it's like
No, you
sometimes
don't need
it just doesn't end up like that, and you're not really hyper focused on that when you're in labor.
Yep.
It's like you want the pretty pictures and the good video footage, but sometimes it's just naturally organic. It's not going to be that way, you know.
Yeah. It's nice if
So
you.
my next question, you kind of already answered my next question, and I agree with you. So you kind of answered my next question about pain and discomfort during labor without any interventions. That is when I talk to mothers, that is probably number one on the list of fear. You know, if I birth at home, um, what am I going to do with the pain? Like, how I know I will be able to take it? I have a low tolerance for pain. And you kind of answered it partially because you talked about the lavender and the hydrotherapy, which I, of course, you know, every woman doesn't like standing in the water. You know, I've noticed that. But me, I loved it. So can you answer a little more in detail if you like? Um,
Sure. So the pain relief factor was unique for me for this one because with my first at the birth center, hypnobirthing worked really well. And I described that experience as 95% pain-free for an unmedicated labor. The only painful part being that car ride and over everything else was really truly pain-free. So when I got to my second and I did my refresher course on hypnobirthing, I just planned to do everything the same way and have the same pain-free experience. And what I was not prepared for was every birth is different. And this one was not pain-free, and I was not ready for that. So all of these hypnobirthing techniques that worked super well for my first just didn't this time. And a lot of it had to do with how fast this labor was. My first was 9 hours total. It was fast at the end, which gave me a clue that my second would be faster, but I wasn't expecting this much faster. I mean, it was an hour, 45 minutes from first contraction to baby in my arms. So that's very fast. So because it was so fast, each contraction didn't really start and stop with a break in between. My very first contractions were transition level contractions, and they were one on top of the other with no breaks. So I was really just suffering my way through it, and the water was the only thing that helped. And I remember being in the uncomfortable small tub with the water and the washcloths, just like, hurry up and get this tub ready, hurry up and get this tub ready, like get me in this tub. And that was the only relief I had was once I got in there. And I think that's a big thing is knowing, not just knowing that you have tools and techniques you can use for pain relief, but having a variety. Because like you said, some women don't like the water. I thought I wasn't going to like the water, but I wanted a tub just in case. And that was the only thing that helped. So I can't imagine not having that option available to me because I did need it for that particular birth. But so once I got in the water, then it was like, oh, okay, I can do this. But it was a very difficult birth, much harder than my first and third. But part of that, I think, had to do with expecting it to be like my first and be easy, and it just wasn't. But it was fast. So as soon as it was over, it was like, yay, you're over, everything's great, and baby's here. And I will say recovery was so much easier. Being in the water, I had no tearing at all. So I felt amazing immediately. Was very present, bonded to baby, like everything was great. So it making that birth that much harder had, a really great immediate relief once she arrived. And we also had a fun surprise with her was she was born in call. So the amniotic sac didn't break. She came out still in the sac and then like broke it herself on her way out, which was super cool. The midwife hadn't seen that before. And so that was special for her too. And my husband got to help her catch. So like, it was just really great and helpful to have something so special after such a difficult birth. Even though it was short, it was hard. So having that sort of like icing on top of the cake or like bow on top of the present kind of thing of like, here's something special, was really neat. But it was a great experience. But again, it was one of those like, oh, every birth really is different. What works for one doesn't work for another. Now I know that. So it was a fun way to learn that lesson. But thankfully, I did have tools available to help. And for this one, water was the main one for sure. It helped so much.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I love that. Um, a very important message, because just because you have one birthing experience with one child doesn't mean that it's going to be the same for the next child, or the next child, right? All your
Mhm.
experiences may be different, and what worked in the last birth may not work in this birth. um I feel like with the water, even though it really helped me, it kind of stalled my labor, in a way, because I wasn't moving around enough. So, that's something to think about. My dude, like, you got to get up out of there now, but I would not have done, I'm like, how could I have done that without water? Um, so water for me is very healing. So I teach a labor coping skills class, and one of the things that I teach mothers is the power of water. Water is so powerful in birth. Like, I wish more hospitals, for the mothers who will never have the courage, or they're not in a position to have a home birth. I wish they implemented in hospitals so that more mothers could experience it, because it really is a game changer. Literally. Um,
Agreed.
so what support system did you set up in place for your birth? I know you talked about the midwife group and your husband being there, but did you have any other support system or team that you set up to help you feel comfortable, confident, and uplifted and nurtured within your birth?
Yes. So I am very lucky in that my mom is a birth doula. So a lot of people want their mom to be present, and then it's, you got your mom and your partner, your husband, and then do you have a midwife, and then do you also want a doula? And it becomes like too many people. So my mom slash doula was one person, which was nice. So I had her and my husband as my main support through labor. Because everything was so fast, the midwife barely made it in time, and she wasn't even going to come. We called to say like, hey, I think it might be tonight, before it really had started. Um, and she was coming from another birth and was like, I'll probably go home and sleep, just call me when you're ready. And then it was last minute, well, maybe I'll just come to your house and sleep on the couch and just wake me up when you need me. And I'm so glad she did that, because she got to my house and baby was out 30 minutes later. So that was great that she did make it. So I did have the midwife there. But the main support was my mom, who was mom slash doula, and my husband. And doing that repeat or refresher course for hypnobirthing ahead of time was really helpful. My husband was present for that. So that support was really great. And then I had all of them for my first as well, but my mom wanted to not force herself to be my doula. She wanted to be there, but as grandma, not as doula. So she gifted me a birth doula as well as herself and my husband, which I'm so glad I had, because for that one, I think there was about a 5-minute window where I needed support, and that doula was the only person who was there. And she was worth her full fee for those 5 minutes. Absolutely. So I tell everybody, if you can get a doula, get a doula, because I even had a doula and I got a doula. So doulas help so much. So that was my first, mom and husband, and the midwife for my second. And then we used the same midwife group for my third. But this one was even faster, so they did not quite make it in time. That one was 45 minutes total, so very fast. And they arrived about 15 minutes after I delivered. And my only wish for that birth was that I could get in the tub, because with my second, I was able to deliver in the tub, but I had to move into a weird, uncomfortable position to make sure baby delivered into the water, because we didn't have time to get it filled up all the way. So my main goal was get the tub filled in time. So that was my husband's job with my third, was as soon as I had my first contraction, I sent him to go fill up the tub. We got it filled in time, and I was able to deliver in the water. And he had helped catch alongside with the midwife for my second. So with the midwife not making it in time for the third, he was very calm, cool, and collected, knew what to do to catch baby for the third, which I'm very thankful for. And by a stroke of luck, my mom was staying with us that week, because my dad had been exposed to COVID and she didn't want to get COVID and not be able to be at my birth. So she was staying with us overnight, and I went into labor in the middle of the night and just walked down the hall and knocked on the door to wake her up. And so I had that support for my third. She was supporting me. He was getting the tub ready. He caught, and then 15 minutes later, the midwives came, and that was like, if I could have planned it that way, I absolutely would have. I loved being left alone, just having people, and my mom was there more so like holding space. My husband was doing the logistics, and I was just in my own world. There was no midwives checking me. There was nobody messing, asking me questions, doing anything. But then I still had the medical support after to manage blood loss, check placenta, make sure every vitals are good. Like, you know, I didn't ever want to do any of that myself, so I would have not planned on unassisted. But having an unplanned unassisted birth where they came after, that was my perfect situation. I loved that completely. And they're just having that support of the emotional support and presence of my mom being doula and my husband there, and logistics. It was really awesome.
I love that. You know, I've worked with a lot of mothers who virtually and one in person who had unassisted births, and I don't promote unassisted birth, right? Because I feel like it's a special type of woman who um, is able to have an unassisted birth, right? But I feel like women who have had unassisted births, um, they feel a different type of empowerment, even if they did have a midwife and the midwife just didn't make it. You know, because some women don't plan to have unassisted birth at all. And a lot of times it's not that it's the power of an unassisted birth is not the devaluing of their midwife being there. It's just that, wow, I did this without anybody medically here and I'm okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I try to get more of my unassisted moms to come in and speak about their experiences. But I feel the same way as you. I had a midwife as well, but I was going to go unassisted. And my midwife was very hands off. She was very, very hands off. And that was my wishes.
Me too.
Because I felt like if it was too hands on, it would stall my labor because I know me. You know, I know my temperament or what I would want. I want to just be still. I just want to be loved on and guided, but not hawked over, you
Yeah.
know? And she's respected that. She like your midwife went to sleep or my
Yep.
midwife was in my nursery. So I really love that. Hopefully I'll have more well, my friend had an unassisted birth, so hopefully I'll have more unassisted moms come and share their experience because it's not always intentional. But it's a certain power that I feel. I've heard the experiences of other mothers that they feel having an unassisted birth, but still knowing that they have a medical professional to come and make sure that everything's okay, so it gives them that extra comfort and love that they need.
Yeah.
um for sure. So were there any challenges that arise during your birth? And if there were any challenges that happened during any, what were some of the ways that you faced them or you overcame them?
Um, the second being so painful, I think was an unexpected challenge. I really wasn't ready. Um, I can kind of get into that hypnobirthing zone, altered mental state kind of very easily compared to most. And I was ready to just drop into that, get in the zone and do my thing. And it was like, wait a second, what's happening? This isn't working. My breathing is not, and this is hard. I just wasn't ready for that. So at be like, yeah, you're in labor. Labor's hard. It's okay. It's okay to be for it to be hard, you know. And making sure she was getting me the washcloths for the heat because the heat did help and relax and just like reminder to relax. A trick I learned from her that I use with I'm serving as a doula. Um, I didn't like people talking. I wanted quiet. And so she would use just her hands, like just a finger, to like touch the area that needed to relax. So I would go like this, and she would just go like that and didn't have to say anything. Would just like touch a finger here, or like touch a finger here, and I would relax my face. Or like, you know, wherever she would see me just start clenching up, it was just, you know, touch here, you know, and I'll use that as a doula, and that helps a lot because keeping the volume down keeps things relaxed really well. But that way you can still communicate a lot without saying anything. And that really worked well for me, of just, okay, right here, right here. And I knew immediately, okay, drop, relax the tension away. And that really helped a lot. And then with my third, the unexpected challenge of, hey, midwife isn't quite here yet. But I think I felt so confident from my second, of like, that was really hard and I did it, that you know, I almost like didn't even notice the midwife wasn't there. I was just like in the zone, could care less. And it was a fantastic birth. Super great. And that one I consider 100% pain-free for sure. So the challenge of having a midwife not there wasn't a challenge at all. I think it might have even helped me for labor, to not have somebody come in. If the door opened 20 minutes before it did with them walking in, that would have disrupted me out of my zone. And I don't think it would have been pain-free had I had that interruption. So I'm really glad it worked out the way it did, because for me in that birth, that's what I needed.
Yes, I love, love, love. I love that. So, how did you ensure the safety? I know you had your midwives, but were there any other things that you did to help ensure the safety of you and your baby during your home birth? Of course, safety is a big issue or concern or fear for mothers who are considering home birth, as you shared earlier about your experiences when searching for a midwife, right? And what are some things that you also did to help prepare and ensure that this was going to be safe for you and baby?
The one I did the most preparation about safety was actually my third. And that's because I had already had my second so fast, being so difficult, with precipitous labors, where labors under 3 hours total. A lot of people who experience that have too much bleeding or will full on hemorrhage. I didn't have a full on hemorrhage with my second, but I did have a little too much bleeding where we were all starting to get a little nervous. And I actually requested a shot of Pitocin in my leg to help, because fundal massage was excruciating and I did legitimately need it. I was bleeding too much and I did not want to transfer to a hospital if I didn't have to. So after that experience, with my third, now I know I could deliver really fast. So if I already did it in an hour, 45 minutes, what happens if it's faster? Nobody makes it to me. What happens if it's faster? Nobody makes it to me and I have bad bleeding or worse bleeding again? You know, how can we be safe? Because even if, you know, I was considered, you know, higher risk for bleeding than I was, I couldn't, the only way I could know that I would make it to a hospital to deliver at, based on how fast I went last time, would be a scheduled induction. And that didn't seem like a good idea for, I didn't have medical need, you know, the labor would go fine. It was more the postpartum I was concerned about. And I did not want to be trying to drive to a hospital in labor knowing my last one went so fast, because a baby on the side of the road seems a whole lot less safe than a baby at home with a midwife on the way. So for safety, that was a huge part for me, because I was, they say third babies are wild cards. I already had one that went fast. So it was either this one's going to go even faster or it's going to be like 30 hours. And so I was trying to be mentally prepared for either direction, which is hard because those are two very different experiences. But I definitely got the even faster. It was 45 minutes total. So I woke up around, it was 12:04. I looked at the clock, woke up, it was 12:04, got up to go to the bathroom, went out and sat on my ball, you know, in the living room for a minute, 10, 15 minutes before going back to bed. I was going to go back to bed. And I think it was 12:30. 12:30? Yeah, 12:30. I had my first contraction, woke everybody up to like, okay, game time. And baby was out by 1:15. So first contraction baby's 45 minutes. So I was expecting fast, not quite that fast, but knowing it was probably going to be fast, I wanted to have everything on hand that I could possibly need. So with a home birth, usually 36 weeks or so, you have your home birth kit ready to go, all the supplies your midwife wants that you have, and your birth location already organized, ready to go. So I had that like any other home birth, but we also wanted to make sure that if they weren't there in time and I was having excessive bleeding, that I had access to medication to help stop bleeding. That was something that we added to the birth kit to make sure that if I needed it, it was there, with the plan being, hopefully I don't need anything and they're on their way and they can manage everything. But that was helpful just to know it was there in case of an emergency. My husband knew what to do in case nobody made it, of how to check on baby, what to do, what to not do, kind of thing. And that's something the midwife kind of talked us through to make sure he was comfortable. And in emergency, which hospital to go to, and that kind of stuff. So that helped a lot. And when I actually did deliver and the midwives came after, we didn't need that medication. I did bleed a little bit extra again, which we were expecting, and was able to avoid the Pitocin this time. Just using herbal remedies worked this time. And they brought those with them to make sure that I had multiple different options in case one thing did or didn't work, to make sure that we could control bleeding at home, and only look at transferring in a true emergency, which we did not have, and was able to take care of everything at home and stay at home, which was really.
And what moments of or aspects of your home birth really stood out to you? Like, what are some memorable things that you think of now that make you smile, or that you always tell when you let people know that you had a home birth? And what are some things that really stuck out to you,
There's a
or
couple.
even that you passed down to your children?
Yes, so there's a couple. So with my first at the birth center, this was in Pittsburgh, and they love their Steelers. So our nurse, instead of scrubs, was in a Steelers jersey. So that was fun. With my second, I one of the memorable things was immediately, well, for sure, right when she was born, being in call. Like, that's pretty special. That's very unique. And we have pictures of that and a video of that. So like, that's really special. But with my first, I had really a picture perfect labor, but I had a very difficult time postpartum. And it started immediately as soon as she was born. It was like a light switch where I felt disconnected, disassociated, not present, couldn't connect with the baby. And it lasted for weeks and kind of turned into postpartum depression. So with my second, I really wanted to avoid any of that as much as possible. And so a very memorable moment was right when she was born, experiencing the polar opposite of being really in my body, really present, really connected to her, all the things I didn't have the first time. So that was really special. And then the end call thing on top was just like over the moon. So that postpartum was super great, even though that labor was really hard. And then with my third, it's pretty special to like have it literally just be my husband and my mom there. And my oldest one had told me all throughout the pregnancy that she wanted to watch, wanted to be there, she wanted to watch. So my mom was there, so she was able to like go wake her up, bring her in, watch like the last 5 minutes, and she got to watch. And then my mom took a few pictures, and we have a picture of, let's see, she was 5. I think she had just turned 5 when I had my third. And there's a picture of her sitting on the recliner in her pajamas, like looking over at the birth pool, and her eyes just big and just like. We have this picture, and I think the first thing she said was, "I think I want to throw up." And then 30 seconds later, she smiles and laughing and like, holding the baby, and like she was totally fine. But I thought that was really funny that, but like she really wanted to watch, prepped her for that, and she knew what to expect. But yeah, her big eyes and I think I'm gonna throw up was really memorable.
That's hilarious. My son is 3.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, my son is 3, and as a doula, my last in-person birth, I didn't have a sitter.
Oh, did you
So
bring
I had
him?
no choice but to take him. I had no
Mhm.
choice but to take him. Now, the beautiful thing is he was able to run around with the other children because this was at a birth center, but it was very family oriented. So
Nice.
everybody brought their children. So he was able to run around. But it just so happens that as soon as she was about to push, somehow he ends up in the birth room. And he was just
What's happening?
what is going on?
Yeah.
I'm like,
It's
he'll
so
get
cute.
used to it. Like this is mommy's life. You'll get used to it. But
Yeah.
it was a shock. It was definitely a shock for him for sure.
The other thing I just remembered was for my third, another memorable piece was, I forget how much longer after it was, but they had a segment on one of the radio shows about like, when were you your own doctor? Of like, you cut your finger and you should have gotten stitches and you didn't, or, just crazy things that people don't go to the doctor for that they should have or whatever. So everyone's calling saying their stories. And so I called just to, say mine of like, well, I gave birth at home and there was no doctor. So I was my own doctor for that. And I got on the radio and got to tell the whole story on the radio and like have a recording of the whole radio conversation. So that was pretty cool too.
Oh wow. Wow, I love that. I love that. I know people like, what?
Yeah.
Even though home birth is the original way, it's like we have became so far away from that having a home birth now is a shocker, especially if there's no midwife there, right? They're gonna be
Yeah.
like, what? Like, are you crazy? Like what? How? Why? How? Were you
Exactly.
okay? Was the baby okay? Everybody starts freaking out and getting frantic. So, I know that was
Exactly.
fun. That was fun to do. I'm sure it was.
It was fun.
Yeah. So, do you feel like you talked about this already? It's funny that you answered you answered the next question with the previous question, but if
Yes.
you want to expand on it, you can. Did you feel like your home birth experience actually helped your postpartum period? And I know you talked about how with your first baby, it was a disconnect with the bonding, and you felt like the postpartum depression really kicked in in the worst way. So do you feel like with both of your home births that even though postpartum can still be tough for home birth mamas, but do you feel like the healing period or mentally, physically, or even the support, do you feel like your home births were better for your postpartum period?
Absolutely. They were like 10 times better. Um, my experience with the being disconnected to the baby with the first one, for me personally, that was, I have a bit of trauma and abuse background, and I knew going in that that often gets triggered in pregnancy and delivery. And so I was seeing a special therapist who focused on this. I was really prepared for like, what do I do if I have flashbacks during labor? Like I was really on top of it. And I was not expecting for it to impact me in the way it did. I was prepared for a flashback or like, what happens if I have a panic attack, or like, that's what I was preparing for. And instead, labor was picture perfect. And as soon as she was out, my body just checked out and completely dissociated. I was not present. I was not bonding. I was not any of these things. And then that turned into problems later. So with my second, I was a little bit more prepared for, okay, trauma can impact things in unusual ways. How do I do this? And that's where I really doubled down and focused on nervous system. So I remember being in the tub with my son. It was really hard right before she was born with this really difficult labor. And my mom going through the things that we had prepared for, of like, name 5 things in the room you see, what's something you smell, what's something blue, like keeping me physically grounded to the room. There was a period of time where it was, okay, let's get your feet out of the bed and put them physically on the floor for grounding. Like, let's work all these nervous system regulation techniques to keep you present and keep you from dissociating. So that was huge, to really stay present in my body and not get too flighty and checked out and out of body. So that, and the water. So by having the water, All three of mine, I used a hypnobirthing technique called J breathing to breathe baby down instead of push, and had fetal ejection reflex for all three. But with second and third being at home,
Oh, wow.
that meant my skin was so softer that I didn't have any tearing with my second or my third. So the two big things being water support to avoid tearing for physical recovery, and the nervous system regulation to stay present in my body for emotional recovery, combined made my second and third postpartum experiences at least 10 times easier than my first. And my first physically wasn't hard. I did have some tearing. She came out with a nuchal hand, so her hand was up by her face. So I did have some vaginal tearing, like second degree, so nothing really horrible, but the emotional recovery was very difficult. And physical recovery was too. Even with a second degree, wasn't handling stairs well, or really actively doing my 8 to 10 weeks postpartum. And with my second and third, I felt perfectly fine within a week. So drastically different experiences. But yeah, the no tearing, huge, like so huge. It was so much easier. So that's why
Wow.
I say never not have water ever again, because that helped me not tear. And some people still tear in water. There's some genetic, aspects, how elastic is your skin, and all that kind of stuff too. But for me, that helped a lot. And yeah, 10 times easier recovery for sure.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing. So my very last question, which is a big one, what advice or what empowering words would you give to a woman who is considering having a home birth?
Listen to your intuition. I think we say those words a lot, but don't really dig into what it means. Um, Especially if you're someone like me who has some trauma background. Sometimes we can confuse something that's a trauma trigger as our intuition, which gets really complicated. So when you learn how to find what is your intuition, your true inner voice telling you, that is a really great steering wheel for decision making. And I love, as a doula, I'm sure you're very familiar with the brain acronym of, going through what are the benefits and the alternatives and, all those things for decision making. But the I for intuition, I really think is the most important piece. And learning how to check in with your body, like, how does this decision, the possibility, make me feel in my body? Do I feel tension? Do I feel peace? Do I feel not the emotion, but the physical sensations? And adding that into decision making can be really helpful, with the caveat of learning how to decipher, is this my intuition, or is this like a trauma trigger response? So that piece for sure, intuition. And also I'll share this quick story of one of the pieces for me that really helped my intuition answer the question of, is home birth right for me? Was when I was looking at it with my second. I was already with the home birth midwives, but I was having second thoughts. I even went to go tour the birth center local here, now that we were in San Diego. Like, should I switch to the birth center, was something I was looking at. And I went to a prenatal yoga class, and the yoga instructor was talking a little bit at the beginning about the history of this area of San Diego, and Native people who had lived here, and what their birthing culture was like before all of us arrived. And this particular mountain was known as a birthing mountain, and the women would go to this location to choose to give birth near this mountain. And that was the mountain I lived across the street from, and where I would be birthing if I had my home birth. And the thing I kept questioning was, what if something goes wrong? What if something goes wrong? Should I switch to a birth center, and all that kind of stuff? And at the end of this class, after explaining all this stuff about this birthing mountain that I live next to, she gave a business card out to everybody that had a birth affirmation on the back. And I flip it over, and the back of mine says, what if something goes right? And it was just like, yep, intuition, thank you. That's the answer. It was just peace all over with the choice. Yes, home birth is right for me for this. And I still have that card. It's on my nightstand. Yeah, what if something goes right? And listen to your intuition, and you'll know the answer, and there's no wrong choice.
I love, 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 love. That gave me chills. That gave me chills, by the way. I love, love, love that. That was a confirmation. It's like, I got to find a way to reach her, to give her the message that she needs. And here it goes.
Yeah, it was like,
you know what came to me? You said it's on your nightstand. I don't. Yeah, like scream. That was a scream at you. Like this is what you have to do this, right? Um, I started scrapbooking. I don't know if you scrapbook, but I started scrapbooking for my son. So I think that would be a great thing to scrapbook if you do scrapbooks for your children or for your home birth experiences or whatever. But I think that card would be something to really keep and never let go of. That is very special. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Melanie, for being a part of my home birth series to tell your story to mothers or anyone who is going to watch this and encourage them to have a home birth or to consider it. Again, if you want to connect with Melanie, I will be putting all her links in the description, and you can find a way. You say you're in San Diego, right?
Yes.
Still?
Yes, San Diego.
Okay, so Melanie is in San Diego. So if you want to know a little bit more about her, I will have her links in the description. Thank you so much for coming on to share your story. I really, really enjoyed it. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.